How do you even start a business anyway? This is the Kawartha Small Business Podcast, and we've got business conversations for the Kawartha commute. I'm Brian Rump from U Group.
And I'm Matt Garrity from Matty G Digital. How do I even start a business anyway is probably the most asked question I ever get from people. And I just feel like it's such a loaded question that I'm sometimes like flabbergasted and I don't even know how to reply. And then I sound like a doofus because there's just so many things to consider. I made notes before we started this. I will say I'm looking at Brian's notes and ours are very different and Brian's are very long. And it just kind of just goes to show the perspective of what is the most important things to do when starting a business. So I'll throw that right back to you, Brian. Like, where would you start if you were starting a business?
So I do have some long notes, but if we want to really simplify it, have you ever seen any of those like beach body memes on social video
I think
where it's
so.
like how to get a beach body?
Yeah. It's
It's like
like,
have a body, go to the beach. So how do I start a business? It's like start a business. So from a very basic level, you could start a business. In Canada, our barriers to starting a business at the most basic level are very, very low. It can get a bit more complicated. It's kind of funny because, the government's like, we'd like you to have a business and we'd like you to pay taxes. We're not really going to exactly tell you how to do it, but we'll put a bunch of stuff out there and you could figure it out and then, report to us how much, you make and what you do. So that's where, we can really jump into some of the legalities, but really from the core start is start your business. And I'd like to maybe, talk a bit about what is a business and, what it is, what are maybe the core things you need to start. So, I mean, for me, a business really comes down to trading value for money. So you're solving somebody's problem for them and you're getting money in return for that. Some people, help their neighbor unload their truck and they get paid with pizza or, a little bit of money. At the fundamental level, that's a business. Do you need to necessarily do all the other stuff on the list and make it official? Probably not. I think you probably want to early on define, what's a business versus maybe a hobby or
right.
even a charity, right? I use the word charity or subsidy because there's a lot of people who get into a business and they kind of love doing it, but they don't really price it properly and they end up not making money or losing money
Mm-hmm.
uh, doing stuff for people. So that's not really a business either. So I think for, our conversation, we want to talk about a business as something that you want to make a part of your living or all of your living.
For sure. And I approach that question always of how do I start my business from a marketing perspective.
And
And
I
I've
think
got,
that's not the number one spot. So as much as my list is long, marketing, like, you're the marketing guy. I have some finance, but I think marketing is
yeah.
top. So let's hear what you have to say.
But within my top five was exactly what you just described. I have written down here like product/services. You have to determine right away, as silly as this sounds, what is your business? What are you offering people? What are you trading? What did you say? Commerce for value?
Or value for money.
Value for money? That's much simpler than what I did. But yeah, you need to determine like what is it that I've got here? Do I have a background in this product service? Do I have a passion for this product service? And how am I able to trade money for value here? And I that was obviously the thing that probably attracted me first to my business, of course, was a bit of a background in digital marketing. And then, of course, like a big passion around it and recognizing I have the tools to take this to the next level and go out on my own. And I spent a lot of time thinking about what are the services that I can offer. I also think this is something that people might get bogged down in right away, where they might even spend too much time thinking about products and services. So, like, I recognize, okay, I'm going to do digital marketing, but then within digital marketing or internet marketing or whatever you want to refer to it, what am I going to offer? That's what I spent a little bit of time on. And this is where, again, I think people get super bogged down. I spent a little bit of time defining these are the few things that I know I can do and I love to do. But I also became really interested in something called like product market fit. And I'll let Brian define this any better because he's much smarter than I, especially when it comes to definitions and acronyms. But what product market fit is basically, instead of you telling the consumer what you offer, the consumer tells you what you should offer. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I think that sort of term is. I'm not familiar with the exact definition. I love the word fit, though. My colleague at Fleming College, Wayel, and I try to teach our one class. The magic word is fit, and it's usually in the context of strategy. And does your actions fit your strategy? Does your product fit the market?
Yes.
So really, it's all about the customer, and they may not know exactly what they need, but they usually know or have an idea of what maybe the problem they're trying to solve is, or what the pain is that they're trying to solve. So, they're not just magically reaching out to you and stumbling across you. Like, there's a pain there. So you're trying to, find what that fit is as a business that's going to solve that.
Absolutely.
And the more clearly you can communicate that, the better it is, or they understand right away. It's like, they have a problem. They're not exactly sure what they need. Maybe they know some internet marketing buzzwords, but as soon as you put it in front of them clearly, they're like, oh yeah, that's what I need.
Exactly. Right. Or even to make it more simple, I've used this analogy before. Like, if you are a company that sells exclusively red t-shirts and people are like really into your t-shirts, but everyone is asking for green t-shirts, and you're like, no, we exclusively sell red t-shirts. You are not listening to your consumer. You are not adhering to product market fit or whatever. You're not actually listening to what people are demanding and asking of you. And your business is probably ultimately going to fail because you are not honestly able to help the people that are trying to purchase from you. So I spent a lot of time doing that. I had like a couple things out of the gate that I wanted to focus on and I liked doing, but I was very much a yes man when I started my business. And it was a lot of people, hey, do you do this? I was like, yeah, for sure. Yeah. I never done it. I kind of let them know, maybe not. But I spent the time learning, training myself on it. It took a lot longer, like 4 to 6 times longer, if I recall, to do a lot of the work than it does now. But it's all a matter of finding out like what people want to focus on. For instance, I never foresaw myself being so involved in social media marketing, of all things. And now that's the thing that people are literally the most interested in. And they come to me for social media marketing. That is what their demand is. And that's where I take it. And that's what we do now. And it was surprising because that was something I thought would be like really small from where I came from with a couple different agencies. It's not the biggest driver of a lot of things, but it's just interesting to see like that's where it's almost evolved to.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think, when you're starting a business, you have to be both open to doing that and doing different things, but also setting your boundaries as well. So you're not sort of jumping all over the place, but, clearly communicating what it is you're doing, what's the purpose of that business. The next step, I think, really is, if we're talking in general and lots of businesses, is then quickly figuring out if you have any major compliance issues. So are you doing anything that requires a special license or a health unit? So if you're like, hey, I want a coffee shop, Like, I can't just go open a coffee shop on the street, right? Or, if I have a passion for making ice cream, there's rules for that industry,
Thanks, government.
truthfully. Yeah, like I could make ice cream in my restaurant and sell it to you, but I can't make it in my restaurant and sell it at a store somewhere different because there's rules for, you know, where that has to be made, how it has to be transported, all of that stuff. So you got to find out
Yeah.
what those compliance standards are. Sometimes they're a little bit tricky, but usually there's some helpers available. You just have to find the people that will guide you down that path. It could be somebody in the same industry. Maybe you don't want to go to a competitor right next door, but in another town over or somewhere, you could find people that are going to help you just determine those major, compliance things. Can I do this business,
Right.
or am I going to run into big problems? Do I need a license from the city to
Sure.
do it? So digital marketing, you don't need a license from the city to do it.
No.
If you wanted to operate a taxi cab, you would definitely need a license from the city
Yeah.
to do it. So, understanding some of that basic stuff.
Where would you go to ask those questions? Like, would you go to someone like yourself? Would you be talking to? I ask my accountant weird questions. I ask my insurance broker weird questions. I don't have a lawyer, but I've thought about like getting a lawyer on retainer or something to ask questions like that.
So that's an awesome question, and I really like it because I think there's lots of knowledgeable people, and you need maybe a couple of them to see what they say, where they can steer you in the right direction. If you're really good at it, Google is a great spot as well. But sometimes, municipal websites, government websites are a little bit hard to navigate. Um, when I first was in business school and college, I remember learning about your friends as a business owner, and your friends were your accountant, your lawyer, and your banker.
Right.
That said, you have to choose carefully. A lot of accountants are tax preparers and they're great at preparing taxes, but they don't necessarily know, how to manage a business.
Sure.
But then there's some who are very entrepreneurial. They can add, a lot of value to that. I have met a lot of accountants who focus so much on taxes and like sort of reduction that they can't see the future, right? They score keep the past so much, but it's hard to see the future. Bankers as well. A lot of bankers are, and I was a banker, and the pressure is to be a salesperson in disguise.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have an interest in it, that you can find good ones and bad ones. And the same as with lawyers. There's great lawyers who, understand small business and could, help you out, and others who maybe aren't, or they really want to sell you, an incorporation package that creates, big fancy shareholder agreements and
Sure.
file some intellectual property patents and, do lots of things that you don't necessarily need to do right away as a startup. So, be cautious. You're ultimately the one in charge, but ask around, seek help, and usually you'll get pointed in the right direction.
Yeah, and I have a group of colleagues, friends, some mentors that I will often reach out to. You have to be cautious with those people too, because in a lot of cases it's their own feelings and their own opinions on certain things.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah. Everyone's biased.
yeah, and then you quickly learn within that group, like you do want people that will say no to you, but you also need people that are going to be encouraging you and holding you up to a certain standard and pushing you and motivating you. Like you don't need people that are going to be actually like discouraging or detrimental to your growth,
Yeah.
which is something to like pay very close attention to right away.
Although it is nice to have that conversation, and I'm very good at this, where it's like, here's why you will fail.
Mm,
And then being able to overcome that.
yeah.
So putting it all out, here's all the barriers you're going to have. This is going to be sort of tough. If your idea is good and you're willing to go over that, then that's awesome. And then you at least know what to expect. What I find, and having coached a lot of business owners, is when things start going bad, there's a lot of times where they'll say, how come nobody told me this?
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, especially for people who should have known. And that's where, like, I try to be candid as much as I can and put it all out there. And
Yeah.
it's not to be mean or anything. I love small businesses and I love people being successful. But I also really hate watching people sort of burn money in
Yeah.
something that ends up closing down. And it really bugs me, when I have those conversations and then 2 years later, someone closes a business and they've lost, $100,000 or some insane amount of money. Like, I feel physically ill from that. So it's good to get, that type of information, but at the core level, start your business,
Yep.
especially if it doesn't cost a lot to get going, or you can walk away fast. If you fall on your face and you can go get another job right away, you might as well start
Yeah.
your business. If you need a lot of capital, for example, I've seen a lot of people start businesses with heavy equipment, and right out of the gate, they've got, 80 grand loan that's a couple grand a month payments.
Yikes.
So that's where you need to spend a little bit of time to really, put a few more ducks in order. A couple sort of just some quick hits, things to think about. Think about registering your name. That's a big one that people aren't sure about. If it's a quick, simple business, you're Maddie G from Maddie G Digital. You register that name as a sole proprietor, so you can accept a check as Maddie G Digital. When I was at the bank, people would come in with checks for, say, Maddie G Digital, and just because you call yourself that doesn't mean that's who you are. So make sure if you're going to go by a name, register it. If you're not, you just accept, personal checks. You can do activity that way.
Yeah, for sure. And I went through that process, of course, when I started. And you can obviously register through the government. But I found it wasn't difficult, but just like any government website, it had its challenges and obstacles. And then I started seeing ads for this service called Ownr, OWNR.co. And they helped you register a business. It's like $10 more than it would be through the government. You're able to do it throughout like 24 hours a day, which through the government site, you're not actually able to do, if I recall. They made the process really simple, really easy. It cost, like I said, I think it was $10 more than normal. It's like $80. But then I found out Ownr is owned by RBC. I'm not affiliated with RBC at all, but I will shout them out. And what they said is if you go into an RBC within 3 months of opening or registering your business on Ownr, and open a completely free business account, free to open, free monthly, they give you the $80 back. So I registered my business. It was a lot easier to do. And it ended up being completely free. And then I ended up getting this RBC business account that I used for all my expenses. They threw a credit card at me. Like, I walked right in there, which is maybe a conversation for a different day, but they basically just threw credit at me. It was a cool experience. And I've been with another bank my entire life, and this is kind of felt like a trader going in there, but I thought it was a great service and really easy for people to use.
That's awesome. Sounds like Ownr owes us a lunch or a sponsorship money. That's a really good point, because I haven't heard that and haven't went through that experience. I would say usually be cautious for those types of businesses, but that sounds like a good, and it's a reasonable fee as well. Because again, a lot of the government websites aren't really that complicated. But if you're not used to doing it, then you like don't understand what the questions mean. So like
Yes.
I've done this with several small business owners where they'll come and we'll walk through it together as part of helping them open the business. But that sounds like a great service.
For sure.
So yeah, register your name. That's kind of the simplest thing you do. You figure out if you need permits. A lot of common questions too is like, do I need to charge HST? The quick answer that I always give, again, if you plan to make a living out of this business, register for HST. Again, it's fairly simple. It's another website. Start charging it right from the start. And that way you don't have to have the awkward conversation with your client about, hey, I forgot to charge you HST. Can you please, pay me for it? Or what they see as like a price increase. That said, if your business is a hobby and you're under a certain revenue threshold, you don't necessarily need to do that. But to me, it's cleaner if you do it from the start.
Yeah, I super agree with you. I didn't want to have to deal with any messes down the road. So I applied for HST, if not the first day of my business, the first week. Funny, they make that a lot easier to apply for and figure out than registering your business. But you do not need to submit HST until you make 30 grand in a year, but you can voluntarily start paying toward it. And that's what I did. I recommend it because like you said, Brian, all of a sudden, however quickly your business scales and grows, like you could be giving a price increase to your clients 3 months, 6 months, 12 months from now. And yes, it's HST and a lot of them will understand like they're going to get that back. However,
it is a B2B, but if I've been a customer at a place before and it's like, you pay your fee, you get used to it. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, hey, by the way, we have to start charging HST now. So, everyone sees that as a price increase.
For sure.
Even though technically it's not, we're just charging you tax now. In reality, it is because it's how our brains work.
Yeah, for sure. So I feel like we're running out of time for this Kawartha commute. And I do have a lot more points, so maybe I can quickly hit on them, and we can always
do some quick hits on those.
So from again like a marketing perspective, once you've figured out your products and services and what you're going to sell, now is when you can start to work on your website. And we can have this conversation honestly in another podcast too, because people
we can definitely do that.
There'll be people like, well, do I need a website? No, you don't need a website, but you are completely tying your hands down the road from a marketing and growth perspective if you don't have a website. From there, I always now think about two things that people will not always consider to be marketing, but your elevator pitch and your business card. So you start your business, you know what you're going to sell, you know a little bit about it because you put your website together. Now you're in the grocery line or the coffee line, and people, you start chatting with someone that you know or you don't know, and you tell them, hey, I own this business. And they're like, oh, cool. What's your business about? And you're like, blah, 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 blah. And you fumble with it. You look like a doofus. So you need to get that elevator pitch down, like something in 30 seconds. I think definitions like almost 60 seconds, but I'm big on it needs to be
it should be shorter now. Yeah. I think I've heard 10 seconds, and I've taught a bit of, the 10-second version.
Awesome.
As well.
So my elevator pitch now, and it's evolved probably 3 times in the last year and a half, where I basically describe that I'm Matt Garrity from Matty G Digital, and I'm a buzzword-free, common sense digital marketer helping businesses grow online with ads, email, search engines, and social media. And that's it. It kind of wraps it all up, makes sense to people, and you want to be able to quickly explain what your business does.
Awesome. I like that. Yeah, website's good.
And then, of course, is your business card, and people don't think about that as a marketing piece. But also now you've had that conversation with people, and they're like, well, tell me you're legit. Leave me some sort
Yeah,
of information. And you're not going to be walking around like the 80s with a briefcase full of pamphlets, but you should be able to carry around everywhere you go a business card that you can tell people, like, here's how you get a hold of me. Here's my telephone number. Here's my email address. Here's my website. And that's
yeah,
basically it on there. And then something we kind of touched on, like it might be a bit of a prospect list, but the last thing I thought about from a business perspective when you're starting, and it is marketing, maybe a bit more sales, but it's a prospect list of coming up with who are you going to reach out to. And that was one of the things I did when I early recognized that I was going to be starting a business sometime in the near future. I came home and I wrote a list of a full page of stuff, of names of people that I knew that owned businesses, past colleagues, past associates, all that kind of stuff that I was going to reach out to when I started my business. And day one is when I started all that. I reached out to all those people. Again, you're telling them that you're in business, you're introducing them to the business. I had wicked success out of the gate because of that, because of all those relationships that I built. And don't take those for granted. I think sometimes we think that it might be embarrassing, or we seem like we're begging to tell like the people that we know, friends, family, past associates, that we now have a business. But
you gotta
like,
shout it from the rooftops.
yeah, like it's your livelihood now, and you need to go to these people that you have past relationships with. Like, what's the point of building any sort of relationship if you can't go and reach out to them when you need them the most?
Oh, definitely.
So I think that's incredibly important from like a starting a business perspective. And those five might not be as complicated or confusing as like most people might think of. Like you said, like there's 100,000 things to think about when you
Yeah,
start.
there's a million.
Yeah.
Or yeah, there's just a lot of decisions. As you get further down it, and we'll talk. We've talked about some of them. We'll talk about more. Um, there's a lot of things we can go into it. The first few steps are just getting moving, right?
Yeah.
Cover off the stuff you have to cover off. Some of it's quick, some of it takes a bit more thought. But again, really just, start your business
Yeah.
and, get going and get selling, right? Marketing is super important. There's a lot of activities, as you've noted through there, that fall under that bucket, but it helps get your message out there and starts bringing in sales, which is what you need to run your whole business.
Yeah, for sure. And like the last thing I want to say on it and to summarize is to build on what you said and throughout is put your head down, figure out what you want to sell, and then start telling people about it. It's actually that simple. That's all you need to do.
Yeah, and I think that that's good. That's simple, and it sounds like we've got our commute finished and episode for me. So thanks everyone for listening. If you'd like to talk about this some more, reach out to us, and we will definitely set that up. Thank you.